Many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio and welcome to In the Sahel, WADR's weekly security magazine that delves into the heart of the African security crisis, telling the stories and strategies that shape the region's response to pressing challenges. The program is brought to you in collaboration with the Open Society Foundation, OSF. I'm Abdullahi Hassan, your host. Last week's episode was on the population's confidence in the military to eradicate or end insecurity. This week, Sahelians tell us what they think of Russia's intervention in the fight against terrorism in the region.
Today, by the power of God, we are happy to see that this partnership has never ceased. So as you can see, it's not just us who are here. It's both the young and the old people. It's all the wives who are asking Russia today to help their husbands, as in the past, to save them, to allow them to exist, to remain worthy as a proud country it was. We started this war without any material. The Malian army didn't have many planes. Today we have a lot of MiGs, a lot of planes, a lot of drones. All of this is the Russians, so they are helping us to fight the rebels.
There is, however, a divided opinion on this poll.
In any
case, the partnerships are based on interest. Yes, of course, the Russia that comes to us is to help us, but in any case, they have an interest in mind.
In the fight against terrorism, Burkina Faso's authorities are turning to several countries, including Russia, as a strategic partner. Vladimir Putin's country is providing Burkina Faso with equipment and instructors. What do the people of Burkina Faso think of this cooperation? Augustine Coley has more in this report, filed in by our Ouagadougou correspondent, Martin Kaba.
On June 5, 2024, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov made his first friendly working visit to Burkina Faso. In addition to his Burkinabe counterpart, the Russian head of diplomacy had a tete-a-tete with the president of the transition, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, on military issues.
You can't because you already have this support. We are in close cooperation, especially in the military and technical areas. We also have cooperation in the field of training of military specialists and specialists of the law enforcement agencies. And I think we will also increase the number of instructors who work here and who help you train your specialists.
Beyond its political and diplomatic character, this visit is also a kind of confirmation in the eyes of the world of the good relations between the two countries. This understanding has been evidenced since the military came to power in January 2022. As confirmed by the Defense Minister General Kassoum Coulibaly, several batches of weapons have been acquired in and through Russia as part of the fight against terrorism.
We have a good relationship. We cooperate. That's the most important thing. We always say that, but Burkina has understood that no one will come and shut our mouths, shut our eyes, and shut our ears. We will go where we want to go. We will welcome whoever we want. And the most important thing is that it is a mutual consideration.
In addition to equipment, Russia is also involved in the fight against terrorism in the field of training. Military authorities claim to receive Russian instructors as part of the training of soldiers deployed in the field, but their number has never been disclosed. In the streets of Bobo Dioulasso, Russia's involvement in the fight against terrorism is well perceived.
En 2 ans pratiquement, la présence russe a changé beaucoup de choses.
In 2 years, the presence of terrorists has changed a lot of things. While we spent more than 10 years with other partners who were not honest with us, who entertained terrorism, we decided to change our partnership and turn to Russia. I have relatives who have fought, who have lost their lives, not because of lack of skills, but because of lack of defense equipment. So we need to have them if we don't have them. And the person who has them, all institutions, all countries that have them, they have delivered this combat equipment to us. It's welcomed. I find it healthy because when the partner comes to us, they come to help us to eradicate our evil. not to benefit from other things. But first and foremost, I think the interest was clear. We have weapons, and they sell to us as they want. They are not like the old partners, as you know, France. Often, you are in a position where they refuse to sell what they wanted, and yet see us as partners or friends. But it is only friends who do not want you to win a good weapon to fight your enemies.
Que tu gagnes une bonne arme, combattre ton propre ennemi.
Since the coup d'etat of January and September 2022, which brought the military to power, several civil society organizations have been hoping to turn to Russia for military needs. Da Francine Sanon, an association leader in the town of Sia, says he recognizes some of Russia's contributions but has his reservations.
En tout cas, les partenariats, c'est gagnant-gagnant, les partenariats.
In any case, the partnerships are based on interest. Yes, of course, the Russia that comes to us is to help us, but in any case, they have an interest in mind.
Ils ont en tout cas un intérêt visé.
According to journalist and political analyst Blaise Kientega, military cooperation with Russia dates back to the Roch Kabore regime and took place on several levels.
With former President Marc Kabore, there was already a peace agreement that had been reached, which allowed at first to acquire some drones, but it was strengthened with the arrival of Captain Ibrahim Traore.
This cooperation with Russia became more widespread after the termination of military agreements with France in February 2023. The Burkinabe authorities accused France of not being sufficiently involved in the fight against terrorism.
Augustine Kole with that report filed in by our Ouagadougou correspondent Martin Kaba. Mali, which has been waging a relentless battle against terrorism for several years now, has opted to forge a new military alliance with Russia. The presence of French troops having been a failure according to the Malian authorities, Russia is now seen as a country capable of effectively combating terrorism. This partnership, hailed by the Malian people, seems to be producing the desired results with the acquisition of military equipment that has enabled the Malian army to grow in strength. Imor Edet reports.
In 2021, several dozen people gathered outside the Russian embassy in Bamako to call for the intervention of a private military contractor known as Wagner in the country. For the demonstrators, the Russian presence would help Mali to ensure its security after the departure of French troops. Yaya Jara is one of the demonstrators.
Today, by the power of God, we are happy to see that this partnership has never ceased. So as you can see, it's not just us who are here. It's both the young and the old people. It's all the wives who are asking Russia today to help their husbands, as in the past, to save them, to allow them to exist, to remain worthy as a proud country it was. So today, Russia, we ask you to help us, that there is military cooperation, that there is humanitarian cooperation, that there is cooperation in all directions.
Since taking power, the military authorities in Bamako have turned to Russia for a so-called strategic partnership based on the acquisition of war equipment and the training of Malian soldiers. This cooperation has been well received in the region of Sikasso, which borders Burkina Faso and Côte d'Ivoire. Urma Goita, a local elected official, speaks with great enthusiasm when he talks about the Malian army's operations with Russian support.
All the fighting that is taking place for me is by our security forces. That's what makes us proud. They go wherever they want, wherever the enemy is. I think it is our security forces that are going to get them. So even if the Russian army is still there to accompany us, it is the Malian army that is carrying out its operations. First of all the components of our army today have the equipment, they have the will, and they have the morale at the top. It's the army that we see.
This sentiment is also shared by Jalakoro Keita. However, this local civil society activist is convinced that despite the intervention of the Russian paramilitary group, the armed forces are taking the lead and are on the front line of the fighting.
We started this war without any material. The Malian army didn't have many planes. Today we have a lot of MiGs, a lot of planes, a lot of drones. All of this is the Russians. So they are helping us to fight the rebels. But to say that it is the Russians themselves who are fighting in our place, no.
This intervention seems to be yielding positive results in the fight against terrorism. But according to journalist and security analyst Masire Diop, the army must remain sovereign in securing the country.
L'accent devrait être mis beaucoup plus, sinon davantage, sur nos propres soldats, sur nos propres hommes qui connaissent le terrain.
The focus should be on our soldiers, on our men who know the terrain, who know the strategies, who know the insurgents, and who also have a deep knowledge of the subject. Foreigners or forces from elsewhere is good, but from the experience in the world, it has always shown limits, because you have people that you can never, ever keep all the time.
Les expériences dans le monde, ça a toujours montré des limites, parce que vous avez des gens que vous ne pouvez jamais, au plus grand jamais, conserver tout le temps.
Beyond defense and security, Mali and Russia have expanded their cooperation in several areas, including the economy, development and mining.
A report by Aliou Cham in Bamako and voiced by Imoredet. Joining us from Mali to discuss the security situation following the military cooperation between Bamako and Moscow is Mamadi Tabili, a journalist and security analyst. He began with an overview dynamics of the security architecture in the past and present-day Mali, especially after the French troops withdrawal, which gave way to Russian instructors, weapons, and the paramilitary group Wagner.
Well, we can say there's a big difference. There's a big difference between the time of the regime of Ibrahim, the former president Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta, may he soon rest in peace. And that period, Mali was really very in a difficult situation, in a very critical situations, because at that time, to be honest, with the presence of the international corporations with Mali, different countries that were involving MINUSMA and all these international supports of Mali to reestablish the security in Mali. With all this presence, the situation was worse than it is today, because at this time you couldn't pass a month or two if there is not a village being burned up or being attacked where you heard about like 100 people killed, 50 people killed every 2 weeks or 3. You will hear such a large amount going from 10 to 20 people killed in a village. So that was permanent in the Malians' daily life. So people were kind of fed up. And that's this situation that also brought the Malian populations to revolt against the presence of all these. And that is the situation that even irritated all the population of Mali. Why? Because they just said, how come with such an amount of group of people, estimated about 3,000 people, like a group of terrorists, being defeating a whole country, because we knew Mali was not well equipped. And this problem happened to Mali. Of course, a whole country, while Mali is disarmed and they cannot fight the terrorism, of course. But how come Mali, including all these foreign presence with these very powerful countries like France, Germany, and many others, how come with all this presence, they could not defeat only 3,000 people, just so moving around the deserts and terrorizing the whole country?
First off, do we really know or understand the conditions that these foreign allies or Western allies of Mali deploy their troops, and what sort of operations they would be conducting in Mali?
Yes, when I say with the presence of all these international forces, it doesn't spare MINUSMA at all, because first of all, France come to fight the terrorism. We fight terrorism here in Mali, in the Sahel, generally, to avoid the terrorism to increase and cross the border, reach the European countries. That's one thing. So they're here ally with the Malians to fight the terrorism, not to maintain peace or not to stop terrorism to attack villages or whatever. These are the presence of France and other countries, Europeans. But still, Also, there we don't have any results. There were no benefits. I mean, these mandates were not really matching with the needs of the Malian populations. So they were need to change maybe their mandate, which it never happens up to their departure.
What do you think are some of the reasons or factors that really sabotaged efforts by Western troops deployed in Mali to help fight against the insurgency? Was there, for instance, an issue of the lack of synergy among the different army units or collaboration from the civil population?
Not only the collaborations of the civil populations, the army were totally weakened. It complicates to have coordinations where there's a lack of everything. In this kind of dislocated army, it is very difficult to face like a unity, to get a unit and to face one enemy. That was difficult. And among even the Malian army, there were a lot of people collaborating even with those enemies, which was difficult. So it's completely difficult to arrange the situations. So I think all these situations brought Mali to rebuild again the army, which is happening now with the current presidents, to unify again the army so that they can be able to face the common enemy, because before all these teams, there were kind of the Beret Rouge and the Beret Vert were not matching each other. They don't understand each other in all they think. There was no coordination. But I think now they're trying to rebuild this coordination little by little. As today, as we can say that today the fear has changed the side, because now is the terrorists who the Malian guys went to find and seek them where they're hiding and trying to capture or even neutralize them. But before it was not that. Malian was cantoned in a base where they can't move out. And you find that they've been always, while they are in the base, in the camp, they get attacked by those terrorists. What happened then? And why they were not allowed to go out. So all these coordinations with the Western, forces on the ground here, it shows its limits, total limits, that we couldn't get out of this situation for even a more decade or 2 decades again. We couldn't finish with the problem.
So, like you said, in the face of resilience, the cost for which the military government in power today says that it is recapturing lost territories is that innocent civilians are being killed. At least that is what the UN says.
Oh, yeah, that's what the UN said, that the innocent civilian has been killed. You know, this is very difficult to say. It's very difficult to say. If I have to refer to what the Malian army have said, Malian army have said they have been neutralized terrorists, armed people. And some UN people said something different. And to specify that, from how you can explain that it's only civilian has been killed, while the Malian army and the official statements announced that they neutralized terrorists. You know, these are very difficult questions from that side. But of course, in the fighting, everything could happen in the fighting. And you can understand that it's not a small fight. Where the Malian is fighting this situation now, in the place where it's called Tinzawaten, it's one of the bastion, the place of the international terrorism based in this area. Of course, in this fight, it couldn't be easy, and everything could be happen. But testifying that only civilian has been killed, I think this is also a lack of faith, accusing Malian government that the only civilian been killed. I don't think if that Mali army is only fighting civilians.
Mamadi Tabili is a Malian journalist and security analyst. And with that, we wrap up this edition of In the Sahel, WADR's security program, brought to you in collaboration with the Open Society Foundation, OSF, aiming to tell the African security crisis the African way. Thank you for listening. Many thanks to my guests and colleagues for their contributions. Join this frequency, 94.9 FM, West Africa Democracy Radio, every Friday at 7:30 a.m. and the same day at 6:30 p.m. for a rebroadcast. Remember to follow the discussions on our social media platforms, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram at WADR News, on Facebook, WADR English Service, and stream live on WADR.org. I'm Abdullahi Hassan. It's a bye for now.